Hello, Instagram.
We're going to be starting our interview here soon. Give me one moment. Going to be inviting our guest speaker today, Ms. Kat Swansey. And Kat, hello.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Sweet.
Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Now,
Perfect.
yes, technical difficulties hopefully will not be an issue. I think everyone's used to virtual discussions in this day and age now,
Yeah.
right? So we're excited to have you here. For everyone who doesn't know, this is, correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, Kat Swansey, right?
Yes.
Sweet. And you can find her username here on the title for the Drive By Live. Also, we had some recent posts in the stories. Pretty easy to find her. You definitely need to go and check out her work. Why else would she be here if she wasn't amazing? That being said, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm Kat. I have been shooting film for 15 years, which is half my life at this point. It's kind of crazy. But I've only been shooting film exclusively for the last 8 years. I got my first camera when I was 13. And it was like a digital point and shoot, and it was not great, not ideal at all, but I was obsessed with it. And I broke it, and then I decided that I needed to get a new camera as soon as possible. And so while searching for another digital camera, I accidentally bought a film camera, and the rest is history.
That sounds like the best accident I've heard of.
Yeah, it was great. It was my favorite accident.
So that's funny. Usually that's my first question. How'd you get started? So you said you were 13, you had a point and shoot?
Yeah. So my grandpa on my dad's side, he was a photographer, and he obviously shot film. And I mean, he died when I was 11. So like 2000, 2001. So I think digital cameras were a thing. I honestly don't really remember because I was super young, but I always remember a lot of camera equipment being around. And I was always kind of fascinated by it and couldn't wait to get my hands on a camera. And he was always like, don't touch anything in here. Like, please stay away from my things. You know, that was like his job. So it was kind of a big deal. And I never wanted to like stop touching any of it. And so finally, I just got my own camera. And yeah, it was like a digital camera, literally a point and shoot. The zoom on it was like terrible. It was not a good camera at all, but it was probably like really nice for the time. And I spent an insane amount of time shooting cemeteries in my hometown, like trying to make them look good.
That's interesting. That's really fascinating. You know, not a lot of people get started that young, whether it's digital or film. You don't remember the model, do you, of the camera?
No, I don't.
No.
I wish I did. I remember what it looked like, and I remember the moment that it broke too. I mean, it like still haunts me to this day.
Yeah. And then, so just out of curiosity, I know we'll talk about gear at some point, but the camera you use now, how old do you think that camera is?
Oh man. So I still have my first film camera, which is the Canon Rebel K2. That one is at least 15, 16 years old. The Canon Elan that I shoot with is probably 20 years old. I should probably look and find out whenever it came out. I know I've like read about it a ton of times, but I'm one of those people, I'm not super detail oriented sometimes. So like I read things and it's kind of like, do I need to know this? Yes. Okay. I'll retain it. Maybe. If not, then no.
That's smart though. It's how you live a balanced life, right? Is this important? If not, I'm just not going to stress about it.
Yeah.
I was just curious because, you know, it's funny. You know, you hear about people's cameras breaking and I'm like, yeah, my camera's 30 years old. They look at me like I'm crazy. It's like they don't build them like they used to. I'm sorry.
Yeah. My Canon AE1 program is a tank. I dropped it when I was cruising around Tennessee a couple of years ago, and I was like sweating profusely like the entire rest of the trip, waiting to get back to Austin to find out if it was broken or not. And that thing held up better than anything else I've ever owned. It's like, I mean, I dropped it, and it was still just like trucking along. I still shoot with it.
That's amazing. Those suckers are like, I think they're from the 70s, and like anything from
Yeah.
the 60s and 70s just seems like it's gonna last, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, so my grandpa Swansey, the photographer that I was talking about,
Mhm.
um, he had a ton of camera equipment, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on one of his cameras. And so it's a camera from 1956. It's an old Miranda camera, and
Okay.
it's in really good condition, but it needs a lot of like extensive cleaning, which is a little bit more than I can do for it. So I'm
Mm.
hoping to take that one to a shop here in town and get it fixed. But that thing is super durable too. I mean, it's gone through several moves with me, and I was kind of looking at it the other day, and I was like, oh my God, like, how has this camera survived everything? And I don't know what its life was like from 2001 when my grandpa died
Mm.
until it came into my hands in probably 2013, 2014. So
Yeah.
I have no idea who had it. My dad came across it at some point and gave it to me. And yeah, I've had it ever since, but that one is still in like really good condition too. And I have no idea how, because I mean, I definitely took care of it because
Hmm.
it's kind of a family heirloom. And I
Yeah,
feel like
definitely.
it's something that connects me to my grandfather, who was also a photographer.
Hmm.
But I probably have not taken good enough care of it, if I'm being honest.
I mean, it's amazing that you still have it, you know. It's amazing you
Yeah.
still have it.
Yeah.
I,
I have a bunch of his old telephoto lenses too, and they're all like
really?
kind of grimy, and honestly I use them as bookends now on my bookshelf. I
Oh,
just
are you
kind of have
serious?
them sitting on sides of books.
That's funny. I mean, they're still getting loved, and they can't be used for photos. They still get loved.
Yeah,
That's cool.
they're a conversation piece.
So they're Miranda lenses too, or
No, they're old Canon lenses.
oh,
They're
okay.
super super old, and like I don't think that they would work. I could probably get them repaired, but they were damaged when they got to me. And
Mm.
I think I just kind of was like, well, I don't care if they're damaged. Like, I'm just glad to have something that belonged to my grandpa. So,
Yeah, definitely. That's very cool.
yeah.
I have a camera from my grandfather as well, and it sits dead center of my shelf. I've got like three shelves and all this other stuff, and it's right there. And I have one lamp, and it's right above it. Anybody who comes over is like, "This
Oh,
is a cool camera." I was like, "It's my grandfather's," but I don't have
oh,
any
I
of my
love that.
dad's either. So I know what it's like to have an important camera. But my dad
Yeah.
was a photographer, and no one knows where a single one of his cameras are.
Oh, really?
So I know, yeah. So I know what it's like on both ends, and even if you don't get to use it, it's incredible how much something can mean to you because a lot of us, if we shoot film, I think there's an aspect of nostalgia. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? In
Yeah,
all of us, so
absolutely. Yeah.
it's definitely understandable. Cool. That's neat. So Canon, you obviously are a big fan of Canon. Is
Yeah,
that?
the one whole year that I shot actual digital, I had a Nikon.
Mhm.
But I bought it and it sat on a shelf for a year. Actually, no, I bought it, used it for a year, and then it sat on a shelf for 9 years, and I sold it like 2 years ago.
Nine
So,
years.
I don't know how I ended up with a Nikon. I mean, I have no qualms about them, but I just kind
Yeah.
of was like, oh, I'm going to try something new with this digital camera, and I'm not going to get a Canon. And it was a great camera. I loved it. I just, my heart, even back then, was on film and kind of has always been on film. So,
Yeah. So it's as long as you've been shooting, you know, have you ever had like gear acquisition syndrome, or do you stick to like a certain? Yeah, I was gonna say you sound like you stick to certain cameras that like take care of you, you take care of them. So how many do you typically shoot with?
um, I typically take two out on the road with me on any given time. And it's usually the same two. My number one camera that I always shoot with is my Canon Elan 7NE, and then I typically will take my my Canon AE1 program out as well. I still shoot with my Canon Rebel. It's a great camera, but I don't know. I really love my Canon Elan, so I shoot with it all the time. It's primarily the one that rides with me, and
Mhm.
occasionally I'll take a Holga or
Oh
like a
wow.
Diana camera out. But I'm not as experimental as I used to be. Definitely used to like experimenting a little bit more with um, those those different films, like the I'm probably going to say this wrong, which is terrible because they featured me in one of their books, but are they called is it Revelogue?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
Revelogue?
most people pronounce it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope I'm not the only one. I'm glad I'm not the only one. But yeah, I used to experiment a lot with their films several years ago, and they reached out and asked if they could include one of my photos in their book. And of course,
Wow.
I was like, yes, duh. You don't even have to ask, please. You know.
That's funny. That's amazing. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you've been shooting for a very long time.
Yeah.
Having looked at a lot of your recent work, I see some really cool things. I see some patterns, a lot of Texas, which, you know, Texas is kind of massive, so it's understandable.
Yeah.
But some really cool stuff in, you know, rural America, a lot of abandoned buildings, it seems like.
Yeah.
What is it that you typically enjoy shooting nowadays? I mean, obviously it's what's on your feed, so talk about that. But what is it that nowadays you're really into shooting?
Honestly, same old, same old. I've always been a big fan of landscapes. So my photos are always devoid of people. Like if a person manages to make it into one of my photos, it's because they were really trying. I can be very patient when it comes to photography. I will wait and wait and wait for people to move. But also a lot of the places that I visit don't really have a lot of people walking around anyway.
Okay.
So obviously a lot of like abandoned buildings, service stations, churches, barns, all sorts of stuff. But lately, actually like through COVID, through quarantine, I've been really drawn to shooting more landscapes. So without buildings or anything, just straight up landscapes, mountains, desert. I've even done a few beach shots, which is pretty interesting for me because I'm not really a beach person. I definitely prefer to be in the desert. But yeah, I don't know. There's something about being alone and being by yourself somewhere and looking around and realizing that you're the only one there, and then snapping that and having it to look back at, you know, like a year or two later. For me, it's always a year later because I have so many film photos that I'm always operating out of a backlog. So everything that's on my feed right now is like a year and a half old, which is crazy.
Really?
Yeah, I share everything.
Awesome.
And so because I'm not curating my feed at all, it's everything. And I just have so much film that I like can't cycle through it fast enough.
Wow, that's fascinating. So, I mean, it seems like from obviously posting, you said there's some backlog, to shooting it, it's a very relaxed process for the most part for you. Like, do you seek relaxation out of it, or is that just kind of like your lifestyle? I guess I'm just curious. A lot of people do photography as kind of like almost a therapy, you know what I mean? So like, what does it mean to you?
It is definitely therapy for me. So my day job is I work in social media. So I am glued to the internet 24/7, basically.
Okay.
And it's very exhausting to me. And so for me to truly get a break and to truly just disconnect and relax is me in my car by myself, driving somewhere that I've never been before, and showing up and hoping that whatever I was looking for is still going to be there. But I don't typically take people out on the road with me. I obviously have like done photo road trips with people. I've done them with my best friend, my ex-boyfriend. He and I both would shoot film together, and obviously we were together and lived together. So he was like my road trip partner for several years. But it is very therapeutic for me to be by myself on the road and truly alone and just be able to disconnect. You know, like really the only time I'll pick up my phone is to look at a map and try to figure out where it is that I'm going next.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I think it's scary for some people because we're all so used to being connected to Instagram or Facebook or just anything. And I need a break from that, you know, like after I do that all day, 5 days a week, just I have to get away from it for a little bit. So for me, going somewhere where there is no cell phone signal, that's like heaven for me. You know, it's like, oh, nobody can call me. Nobody can ask me about, you know, whatever social media post went up, you know, at work. Like, this is
Yeah.
great.
Huh.
I say that, but I
I've
should also clarify, in case any of my coworkers are online, that I really do
oh.
love my job. My coworkers are all very supportive of me in photography, so it wouldn't surprise me if at least one or two of them are on. So I just want to clarify.
No, I don't blame you. You got to put a thing at the bottom. My opinions are my own. They do not represent my company.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny. Yeah, I've never shot like that. I've never gone out and just
Really?
gotten semi-lost. And you have me, I know you weren't necessarily semi-lost, but just like alone out there. And Corey, who runs Drive By, has been trying to take a road trip out to Texas. So I might get the opportunity to do that. We may just hit you
Do
up. So
it.
if you don't mind, kind of keep your phone on you, because we'll
Yes,
hit
of
you up.
course. Yeah, I have people hit me up pretty frequently and ask me for
Really?
places to visit, and I've been known to send a map, and I could probably put together a really nice map for you guys. So
Oh, sweet.
let me know. I'd be happy to do it.
Heck yeah, I'm getting the hookup. I love it. Let's see. We got a lot of people filtering in and out. I want to go ahead and reintroduce you in case we have any new folks. We are interviewing Miss Kat Swansey of Kat Swansey Photo. Her Instagram username is in the title, in a recent post, in our stories. It's very easy to find. Definitely go check out her work, give her a follow. For anybody who wants to ask questions, we have a little speech bubble in the bottom, the question mark. We actually have a couple questions. I guess we should take the opportunity to pull them out.
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. So this is perfect. Perfect timing. Working in social media, how do you disconnect / deal with the constant barrage of the internet? I think you kind of addressed the majority of that. Is there anything else you would want to say in regards to that question? Let me see if I can actually pop it up there. Do you see it? I don't know if it popped up.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet.
So I think, honestly, it's good to take breaks from it. And it's also good to remember that Instagram and social media, it's meant to be fun, and it's meant to be as a way to connect with other people. And so I think for me personally, it's really easy to get like fixated on, you know, the vanity that is involved with social media. So likes and comments and things like that. And I mean, honestly, working in social media, we call those vanity metrics. And just not because they're irrelevant, but just because
they're called that. That's what they're actually called.
Yeah,
oh, wow.
likes
Okay.
and comments.
That's revealing.
Yeah. I mean, because at the end of the day, a like is great, but it can be kind of hollow. I think what people are really looking for is that connection. And so how can you connect with people? You do it via communication. So DM or comments or things like that. And so that's kind of therapeutic for me in a sense as well, because I do spend, you know, 5 days a week online and sitting in meetings talking about engagement rates and click-through rates and, you know, how many people we got to sign up for this or how many people did this. And so for me, it's a nice break to be able to share my photos and look at other people's photos and not only use it as a way to connect with people, but also use it as a tool for drawing inspiration for myself. Like I am forever saving people's posts, either because it's like a town I've never heard of, or the composition is amazing, or it's like, you know, a roll of film that I've never heard of. So it very much is a way for me to stay connected with people who I would have never had the opportunity to meet otherwise. Like I've made so many friends through this app. And so, you know, when I'm at work and it feels like a lot and we're dealing with the social media crisis, which my company has been dealing with for the last 3 weeks, it is nice to just, you know, unplug from that, turn on, you know, Instagram, go through my feed and just scroll and just kind of like feel inspired and just kind of in awe of the fact that there's something out there that keeps us all together, especially during quarantine when none of us were able to be together. I felt like I really built more relationships with people in the film community because I didn't have anything to do. And I don't want to say that as it was like a bad thing. Like I look at it as a blessing. Like, oh my gosh, I finally got all this time to do what I always wanted to do. And one of those things was meet new people, however we could possibly do that. And for me, it was the film community and really getting more ingrained with that.
That's awesome.
I hope that answered the question. Sometimes I ramble a lot and don't really things don't really come together sometimes.
No, it totally made sense to me. I definitely think you answered the question. I think to me, I'm more fascinated by the fact you could find that balance, because, like you said, you're looking at metrics and numbers and you're bombarded by it. So the fact that you
Yeah.
could even find a way to switch gears, I find impressive. But, I think a lot of us can relate to that. The past year or so, social media has been able to be a lot more positive of an opportunity for folks,
Yeah.
especially in an art scene, whether it's film photography or otherwise. So speaking of like metrics, you call them vanity metrics. So a lot of people have the option to hide their likes now.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what's your opinion on that?
Um, I think I I hope this doesn't sound harsh, but I think I don't care one way or another.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hyper focused on it. I'm not really like looking at other people's likes or comments really either. So for me, I think I probably won't hide my likes simply because from what I understand of it, you have to manually go through each photo and it's the same as like turning off comments. And correct me if I'm wrong. I work in social media, but I definitely don't know everything about it.
Well, this is pretty
But
new, I think, past like couple weeks. It's rolled out
yeah,
officially.
I would rather spend my thumb energy, like leaving comments and responding to people and, hitting the
True.
heart button.
Yeah, no, totally understand. Just curious, wanted to get your feedback on that because I've seen some
Yeah.
stuff in people's stories. Some of them think it's silly, some think it's amazing, and most are like, okay, yeah, it's cool, whatever
Yeah.
you want. So we have another question that kind of leads that direction
Okay.
because it's about posting. So I want to go and bring it up. What is your philosophy on? No, I'm sorry, I totally misread that. Post as in editing, it looks like. What's your philosophy on post for film photography? Post seems to be like editing and any of the work you do after the fact.
Yeah. So I don't edit my photos at all. I
Okay.
take my photos to a lab. I work with Holland Photo here in town, and obviously they do a little bit of editing, in terms of, when they scan it and send it to me. But otherwise, whatever they send me and I get back is what gets posted on my website and on Instagram. So I don't really mess with the colors at all. I share everything, even the photos that I hate, even the photos that are really, really terrible and
Really?
not my best work. Like I put all of it on the gram and I'm just like, you know what, let's just go for it. And the interesting thing is,
Wow.
it seems like the photos that I always feel the worst about tend to be the ones where more people reach out to me and say that they love it. And
Really?
that's always kind of interesting to me, because I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I can't believe I'm going to post this. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going for it. This is just how I roll. And yeah, it's interesting. But, it's film and you're always kind of taking a risk in a way. Not everything turns out perfectly every single time. So you have anywhere from 23 to 35 other chances to get it right on any given roll.
Yeah, that's true. That's interesting. I don't think I know of any. I know a lot of folks who maybe will put like outtakes in their stories, but the fact that you post all of them, that's pretty awesome.
I
I don't
think
know
it
how, I
drives
don't know
some
how
people
often.
crazy. I think I've definitely been
Really?
asked before, like, why don't you curate your feed more? And I'm like, I don't, because not everything is beautiful. I mean, I understand that people do want their feeds to look that way, and I'm not knocking it at all. I mean, like I said, I'm a social media manager, so I spend a lot of time curating a feed at work, and it's
Yeah.
not hard to do. But for me personally, I'm like, you know what? I always learn a lot from other people's mistakes, and so sharing my own, I hope that maybe I'm kind of doing the same for somebody else.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a lot more genuine, the work that you're sharing, and if that's what you're trying to kind of instill in your work. Huh. Okay. So I've seen your stuff. It looks fantastic. It's pretty amazing that you don't, go through and do any editing. So your
Thanks.
lab's obviously doing a great job, and you are obviously, doing an even better job. But
Thanks.
I am a little surprised. You said you've been shooting for, a very, very long time, and you still use a lab. Do you
Yeah.
ever want to do your own processing, or do you just like focusing on the shooting? It sounds like you like focusing on the
Yeah.
shooting.
Actually, I do have plans to switch to doing all of my processing at home.
Oh, really?
I have everything. All I'm missing right now is a scanner. So if anybody
Okay.
has a heads up on a scanner somewhere, let me know. I know Zach Parks had one, but I think he already sold it. But anyway,
Hmm.
I am planning on moving to developing and processing at home. I just moved into a
Okay.
bigger apartment, so I have a lot of space now to work with. It's a lot easier. So I am really excited to get back into a dark room. I have not, I mean, I say dark room as in like my bathroom. It's going to be dark when
Yeah.
I do all of this. So, it's kind of like doubling, like how we've all been working from home and like turned our dining rooms into our home offices. Like that's what I'm
Yeah.
going to do with my bathroom. Like everybody else, it's going to be a dark room.
Yeah, that's what I
um,
always do. That's cool.
yeah. But the lab that I work with, they are great. I use Holland Photo here in Austin, and they do a lot of work just all over the US. People mail in, their photos and their film to them. They do great work. I'm not switching because I'm unhappy with anything. I love working
Okay.
with them. I think that I just am looking for ways to continue growing with photography. And this feels like the next step for me is to just really be involved from start to finish.
Mm.
So that's kind of my next step for now. That's my next step for like the rest of this year. And then 2022,
Okay.
it's like wide open. We don't know yet, but we're going to get there.
Okay, awesome. Well, good luck. I'm sure you'll do great. It's fun. It is a learning experience. It's funny. One of my questions are what are your goals for photography? Do you have any other ones besides that? Well, before I
Yeah.
actually asked that question, so the person who had asked that about post, they commented and said, "Thanks for reading my question. I also post pretty much everything, mostly because as a hobby, film is pricey, so I want to get a good run
Yes.
for my money."
Absolutely. Hard agree there. It is not cheap. I mean, film is only getting more expensive by the day. Processing is only getting more expensive by the day. It's a very expensive hobby to have. So I'm with you. I think I see that comment on there, but yes, 100% agree there that I also feel like I'm getting, getting my money's worth by sharing all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel so guilty now for sharing like
No.
one photo per roll,
Oh my
maybe.
gosh, no. Do your own thing. Like that's the beauty of it is that
Mhm.
anything goes. There's no wrong way to do it at all. So, um, you know, you make your feed look how you want and you feel, you share what you want. And yeah, don't ever feel bad or guilty about that.
Eh, okay, fine. I will reevaluate, but you're right. That's one of the things that's so cool about, I think, film. It's like there's so many ways you can go about it. Because with digital, it's almost there's this weird expectation you're going to shoot 500 photos and pick
Yeah.
one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. We did get some other questions and comments. One of them you mostly answered, but I think it's always fun to bring up just in case you want to add anything to it or clarify. Ever tried developing your own film, which you're going to here soon, but they said to stretch the process even more. I know you said you wanted to grow, but it got me thinking, do you think your photos will change very much? Maybe the way you shoot, the way they look?
No, I think I'll just have more. I
Really?
think one thing that I am also really looking forward to is just having a little bit more money to
Mm,
spend on taking road trips and having the opportunity to shoot a little bit more. So I don't think anything will really change with my process. I think that there's just going to be a lot more film for me to share. So right now I'm operating on like a year and a half backlog. Maybe whenever I start processing my own, I'll be like 3 years.
that's awesome.
If that happens, I would probably have to start curating my feed a lot more. I don't want it to be like so out of touch, like so old, I guess.
It's like so non-recent. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, just post more because the more photos you drop on Instagram, the better it is.
Yeah.
We're
I
definitely looking
post
forward to that.
I post twice a day, but I'm always worried that I'm driving people crazy. Um, I
Really?
don't know. I don't know if anybody even notices. It's probably just like my own fear getting in the way. But I always like I think to myself, like, are people gonna think that I post too much? But then it kind of goes back to that thing about being like, you know what, this is supposed to be fun, so I'm not gonna overthink it. I'm not gonna put, too much thought into it, and I'm just going to do what feels good for me, because I think not that I want to be selfish, but first and foremost, like, I shoot film for myself, and the photos that I take are for myself. And for me, it's just a bonus that other people happen to enjoy it too. And I love that. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not taking photos because I want to look cool on Instagram. Like, I do it because I really love it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to what's next, because if you're developing stuff, you're shooting more, you know. If you need help curating, you know, I wouldn't mind getting some behind the scenes, you know, peeks into some of your work.
Yeah.
Let's see here. So speaking of doing things like developing, I have another question. These are coming in and they're flowing really well. Do you have any plans to make something physical with your work? So I'm guessing that means like prints or a
Yeah.
zine, something like that.
So I'm glad you asked that, because I do. I have put out a couple of zines. I also have prints for sale on my website, but my dream is to publish a book. I have it all laid out. I have everything planned out. I just don't have a publisher. And, you know, in a perfect world, I would just publish it myself, but that costs a lot of money that I don't have. So I think if I could get to a spot where I start selling a lot more prints, I could probably just save up over time. But right now it's like I have to make the choice between saving the money to put out a book or using that money to go on trips to shoot film to put in the book. So I choose to take the trips. I don't know. I mean, is YOLO still a thing? Do people still say that? Because that's how I feel about it sometimes.
That's funny. I don't know if they say it, but I still feel it. I still say it to
I
myself.
definitely
So
still feel it.
I'm with you on that one. Okay. Huh. That's interesting. Well, for anyone who's just joined, you know, we definitely want to help Kat out. So go ahead and check out her Instagram. Maybe buy a print. She's got some awesome work out there in Texas. And speaking of Texas, which I'm sure you go other places, right?
Yeah, I do. But 99% of my work is in Texas. Actually, I shouldn't say 99. I should say like 85% of my work is in Texas.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, I remember driving once through, I think, Brownsville. Is that where the border is, Mexico?
Yeah.
It took us a day to get where we needed to get in Texas from Brownsville, like the entire day. We were just in Texas the whole time. So it's like a small country.
Well, we were our own country at one point. In 1836, actually March 2nd, 1836, Texas established its independence from Mexico. I only know this because in Texas, we love it so much that we are forced to sit through several Texas history classes all throughout grade school.
Really?
Like, we learn more about Texas history than we do about world history or anything else. So, yeah. And also, I grew up 5 minutes from where Texas signed its Declaration of Independence. So I feel like if I didn't know that day, then they might disown me in my hometown.
That's interesting. That explains why so many Texans are proud to be from Texas, because they're so informed about it. They understand the history. That's okay. That makes sense. Because Texans are so, like, they rep the Lone Star State.
Yeah, we love it here. And I think a lot of people don't understand it. But I think, if you don't mind, I'm going to share a little bit about what I love about Texas and why it's my subject matter. So I think a lot of people don't understand how large Texas actually is. You know, we are the second largest state, and it takes, you know, like you said, a full day to get anywhere in Texas. Like, going from Louisiana to El Paso is like a 15-hour trip. You know, you can't do it all in one day. And it's closer for people who live in El Paso to drive to LA than it is for them to go to the rest of Texas. Like, it is massive. And the interesting thing about it is it's very diverse. And I think that is a word that people who have never been here probably wouldn't use to describe Texas very often, but it is extremely diverse here. We are so ingrained in German culture and Mexican culture. I mean, it's just everything is, you know, Texas has become a melting pot for all of those things. And, you know, when I was a kid and I would go on these like family vacations and people found out that I was from Texas. In fact, when I worked at Apple like 10 years ago, I worked in their corporate offices. I would, you know, answer the phone and people would ask me, oh, where are you from? And I would say that I live in Austin. And they're like, oh, so did you just like ride your horse to work? Like, did you have to pick the tumbleweeds up off of the, you know, off of whatever? Funny. And people really think that Texas is just one big desert. And looking at my recent Instagram feed, you might be inclined to believe that, but Texas's landscape is so different, and you drive 200 miles in either direction and you're going to find something different. I mean, we've got national forests, we've got swamps with alligators, we've got beaches, we've got desert, we've got everything. And that's the beauty of it, is that you can
sounds like a small country.
Yes, it literally was its own country at one point.
Man.
So I think that for me, photography is like my love letter to Texas, because I do love living here. A lot more than just because it's ridiculous and it's Texas, but because my fondness for it is so rooted in the landscape, and that it's so different, and that you can find so much here. And, you know, we don't really have a great reputation here. You know, our politics, depending on which side of the aisle you're on, you might like it, you might not.
Right.
But the one thing that I find to be true is people in Texas are very kind, and, you know, they would give you the shirt off their back if they really had to. Wow. You know, like if you needed it. It is a very nice place. And I wish that more people got to see why Texas is great. And I wish that we would stop making headlines for silly things, but we'll get there.
Huh. That's amazing. If anyone watching hasn't been to Texas, I got a feeling they're going to want to check it out. You know, I've been joking with, you know, Corey, that we should put on like a drive-by film, like road trip, not like a full-fledged, whoever wants to join us, you know, once COVID dies down a little bit more, or maybe meet up in somewhere. And I think if we get to pull that off, Texas may be the spot, because it sounds amazing. Fits the vibe. I know it sounds maybe cringy to say it fits the vibe, but it fits the vibe. And yeah, you've got me convinced. Plus there's Whataburger, right? So
my man, no, you know good burgers when you taste them,
right? Yeah, I know enough about Texas to know about Whataburger. So I don't know. So I don't get this question. Maybe you get it. Lone Star in a bottle or a can? I'm guessing it's a drink.
Oh yeah, I do get that. I don't have any Lone Star memorabilia with like right next to me, but definitely. Hey, you know what? I don't discriminate. If somebody's handing me a cold Lone Star, I don't care what it's in, I'm going to drink it. Lone Star is a beer that's made in Texas. It's the national beer of Texas. And it's kind of a thing on my, sorry, what was that?
You said the national beer of Texas.
Yeah. And that's another thing that people might dispute, because we have a lot of great beers in Texas. But the other big beer here is Shiner, and people are very divided about how they feel about either. But the Lone Star thing, I think, comes up for me a lot, because I don't really know why it comes up. I will say that recently, so back in February, during the snowstorm that we had, the once in a lifetime snowstorm that we had, my grandfather turned 80, and he and I are best buds, like two peas in a pod. And he is a Lone Star fanatic. Like, he's been drinking their beer for years and years and years. And
if he's made it to 80, that can't be too bad for you, right? I mean...
Yeah. But I really wanted to do something special for him for his birthday, but we all couldn't be together because we don't get snow in Texas very often. And when we do, it melts very quickly. So to have like a solid 5 days of snow and sleet and ice, I mean, it made the news. Our power grid failed. A lot of people died. It was terrible. But I was like, yeah, I can't go down there to be with him. So what can I do? And so I started this social media campaign called #Pawpaw Needs a Lone Star. And I basically just posted like a bunch of pictures of him through the years enjoying his favorite beer.
Yeah.
And the idea was to maybe get Lone Star to like send him a case of beer or something, but they really hooked it up. And the nice thing is they sent him 2 of everything.
Lone
So
Star themselves.
yeah,
That's so cool.
they sent him a t-shirt, a big sign. He got sunglasses, bandanas, pint glasses. I mean, he got so much stuff, and they sent 2 of everything. And so I got some swag too, which was really nice. And the nice thing is that they wanted to send him like a big birthday cake, but because of the snowstorm, they couldn't find anybody that would make it and deliver it because most of the state didn't have power at the time. So anyway, I posted it all over my Instagram because I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put my friends on here to work. Like, I gotta make them help me get, you know, some Lone Star for my pawpaw. And so anyway, it was great. But also I got a lot of like new followers from that because it didn't go viral, but like it made its way through people in Texas. Like for weeks, my grandpa would be like, oh my God, you're the guy who got the Lone Star stuff. Like people saw his picture online and he loved it. He was eating it up.
Heck yeah, you made him famous, at least for a little bit.
Yeah.
If he hadn't had his 15 minutes before, he had it now.
He's probably had it a few times before. He's a wild one. Okay.
That's cool. All I'm hearing is like, come to Texas. You know the whole beers and cameras thing.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've never participated, but I feel like now that, everybody's starting to get vaccinated and we're all kind of starting to re-enter the world, that maybe it's a good time for me to venture out to, what's it called? Beers and cameras? Something like that, but I think they're out west, like in Cali and New York, I think. I don't know. There's different places, but they started a Texas chapter, Maybe, Lone but Star, the rule will be we can only drink Lone Star. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. That's funny. So the Lone Star, the whole thing, that's really interesting. I love that you put social media to work. I love that you hooked Papa up. And like across the board, that's amazing. But you are definitely a storyteller. Okay, I can definitely tell that. So I'm going to ask you to tell us a story. That's okay. Tell us the story of your favorite photo and or photographic moment. Please. Yes. I think I saw her name on here, but Jordan, if you are watching this, I don't know, like put some emojis or something in the comments. So I say this because I was with Jordan when I took this photo. So me and my best friend Jordan, who is also wonderful film photographer, last December, we took a road trip out to West Texas, both just kind of trying to get away for a little bit. We'd all been, locked inside for a while like everybody else. And we were like, all right, like, let's hit the road. Let's go do something. And so we decided that we were going to go down to the border of Mexico. We were already on the border of Mexico, but like we were going to go to the border towns. And on the way there, we stopped in this town called Shafter. It's not a ghost town, but it might as well be. Like there really isn't a population there. It's just so far away from everything else. But it's about 20 miles away from Presidio, Texas, which sits on the border with Ojinaga, Mexico. And we'd gotten up super early that day to hit the road because we were going to have like a whole day of shooting. But we happened to just end up in this cemetery right at the perfect time. And the sun was just so beautiful and crisp as it was like beating down on the mountains, and the way that the wooden crosses were sitting and just how they contrasted against the grass and the mountains. Like in that moment, I had goosebumps, and I just remember thinking to myself, this is the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. And when I got that photo back from the lab and saw it for the first time, I cried. I've never cried at any of my photos, but I cried at that one because it was beautiful. And I had intentions of pulling it up so you guys could see it, but my iPad was dead. I'm happy to pull it up now if y'all will give me a second to like. Yeah, totally. That would be amazing. That'd be amazing. If you can send it to us too, we'll put it in our stories for later. Yeah. Wow. I'll be quick, as fast as I can chicken peck on this iPad. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. So
So you have such a strong connection to your photos and the work and the intentionality you put behind it. Like for people who see your work and they feel inspired by it, like what would you want to tell them? What would you want to communicate to them? Whether they want to imitate your work or they just want to maybe understand and be, understand more about you, what would you want to like tell those people?
So I get a lot of questions. One, about how I find these places, and two, if I feel safe traveling alone or if I'm ever scared to travel alone. And I've kind of noticed that fear seems to be what holds a lot of people back from really taking that jump and venturing out into other communities, wherever they live. And I think it's natural to feel a little scared because you don't know what you're walking into. And, it's something new and it's something different. But I think my biggest piece of advice is to just go for it. Like if you have the means and you can do it, just go. I know I already said this, but like YOLO, if that's still a thing, just YOLO, like go get on the road and take your cameras and do the exploring that you want to do. I think for a long time, I felt kind of nervous about putting myself out there. This is going to sound crazy, but like I am terrified to take portraits of people. I'm also not very good at it, but I just can't bring myself to walk up to someone and ask if I can take their photo. I will also add that like I don't ever feel super drawn to do it because I don't feel compelled to take portraits of people. I love them. I love looking at them, but it's just not my style. It's not where my heart is. But I also think that sometimes I should follow my own advice. And, if I ever felt compelled to do it, and I have been compelled to do it before. Like there's been a couple of times when I've been in a small town somewhere and I end up talking to like an old man or something. Generally, I have people pull up and they're like, "What are you doing here? Like, how did you find this place?"
Okay.
And so, because they're like, nobody ever comes here. Like, who's this person?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, man, I really wish that I would have gotten a photo of that person, So I think that I should follow my own advice in that sense of like, don't let fear get in the way. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I say just go for it, we've all spent a lot of time being locked inside and like missing out on opportunities to go and do things that we really want to do. So even more lately than probably ever, I feel more inspired to hit the road. And actually, right before I jumped on this live, I booked a hotel in a small town up on the Oklahoma border for next weekend. And I'm so excited. I cannot wait to go. Like if I could get in my car right now and drive there, I would.
That's awesome. That's amazing. It's excellent advice. I love it. Every time I get to do one of these interviews, it's really great because I get it. There are people watching, but I get a lot. And, you've got me so motivated and amped to just get out there and just shoot for me and shoot something different and do it alone, do it disconnected, and just kind of be fearless. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm inspired.
Thanks.
This is really cool.
That's high praise. Thank you. I'm so glad I could do that for you. That's amazing.
Oh, totally. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I keep seeing that people are commenting, and I see it kind of goes kind of quickly here on our end. But if anyone has any questions you want to ask, and maybe you ask them as a comment versus a question, if you want to hit up that little speech bubble in the bottom, the question mark, we can get some more questions here. Let me take a look here.
I'm still working on pulling up that photo.
Oh, really? So speaking of, you were talking about how you don't really shoot many portraits of people. And, I recently discovered you myself. So I don't have, a huge, I guess you would say, a long timeline to go back in. But I did see a portrait of an older gentleman, I think, with at an intersection, like a stoplight.
Yeah. Okay. So
You're good, though. So like,
I didn't take that photo though. It's not mine.
Still a great shot.
I know. So I like put it in, okay. There's a little backstory there. So the trip that I booked in next weekend is to go to Archer City, Texas, which is where my favorite author, Larry McMurtry, was from. He passed away a couple months ago. And so that post is a picture of Larry McMurtry. And I wrote this whole long thing about like why he inspires, or like why he inspired me, and how so many of his books are part of the reason why I love to visit so many small towns in Texas. But I ran out of room in the post to credit the photographer, so I put it in the comments, but no one saw it in the comments. And so I got all these followers from that post, and people were like, oh my God, this is a beautiful portrait. And I was like, thanks, but like somebody from Texas Monthly took it. Like, I feel so bad, but I like don't know how to, it's like if I delete too much out of the post, then the post doesn't make sense anymore. So, and I can't pin comments for some reason. So oh my God, if I ever got the opportunity to meet Larry McMurtry, I would just fall over. But sadly, he passed away a couple months ago. But anyway, I'm going to go, my next photo trip is going to be visiting his hometown and the bookstore that he owns, and then cruising up like an hour away to a town called Thalia. I actually don't know. People here say it differently. I don't know the correct version, but I'm going to find out when I visit. But he talks extensively about this town in his first trilogy of books. And so I'm really excited to do my Larry McMurtry road trip. And yeah, he's an author from Texas who writes about Texas, and very similar, like, you know, very similar kind of upbringing to me, where like he grew up in a really small town and couldn't wait to get out, but then found himself writing about it all the time and being like, I hated living in a small town. Why do I write all of my books about it? And then for me, it was like, I hated living in a small town. Why do I spend all my free time photographing them? But sometimes you just, you know, feel drawn to things. I think for me, going back to my pawpaw, but you know, growing up, I spent so much time with my grandparents, and you know, when I moved to Austin, I just felt so homesick, and I was like, I can't go back home every single weekend because I moved away and it's time for me to be an adult. But I missed it a lot, and it was a very different, it was almost like a culture shock. Even though Austin at the time was not a very big city, it was still a lot bigger and very different from what I knew and what I grew up with. And so I'd been dreaming about it for so long that when I finally got it, I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And I found myself visiting other small towns and then seeing places that reminded me of home, and thinking back to the long drives in the car with my pawpaw and him talking about, you know, the beer joint or the gas station or the general store that he grew up going to as a kid. And I think that instilled a deep love of rural communities for me, and a deep admiration for small towns, because they don't get a lot of credit for the work that they do, but they are the backbone of America. I mean, obviously we rely on cities, but I feel like the farmers and these people who are not working these tech jobs like me are out there like making things happen. You know, they're growing our food and they're building things, and they're kind of overlooked sometimes. And so maybe something I should try doing is, you know, maybe if I really wanted to push myself outside of my comfort zone, I could finally grow a backbone and ask people if I could photograph them and like take their portrait. But in the meantime, I'm just going to keep photographing their property and hope that they don't get mad at me.
That's funny. That's super cool. Thank you for sharing so much. You know, typically we talk about photography, and we have, but you know, there's so much backstory and there's so much inspiration, and you've shared a lot with us, and it's been really cool. I don't think we've ever had anyone come on here and share so much about their, I guess, their life. You know, I mean, you haven't told us history and stuff, but I almost feel like I can understand why you shoot what you shoot. So now when I see your photos, I'm going to just appreciate them that much more. So thank you. I think you accidentally
I got invited to do this. This has been so fun.
Oh yeah, no, it's been awesome. And so I asked the team here. I was like, "Hey, do you guys have any recommendations?" They recommended you. So mad props to, I believe it was Nicolette who recommended you. So mad props to Nikki.
Thanks.
And
Cool.
I think you accidentally answered this question. What is a subject you find particularly difficult to shoot, and what is one you wish you'd shot more? You literally just
Yeah.
answered that, so that's cool.
Portraits for sure. Um, I did finally get that photo pulled up.
Sweet, yes. If you could share that with us, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's probably gonna have like a reflection because of my ring light, but oh, I'm trying to show it. Can you guys kind of see
Yeah,
it?
yeah, we can see it. Wow.
Yeah. Actually, hold on. I bet if I there we go.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's just like the color in the mountains and the grass. Like we don't ever have grass really in West Texas because we never really get rain.
Hmm.
Which is interesting because all it's done for a month now is rain in Texas. Like we've had more rain than Portland and Seattle combined somehow. It's been very
Oh, seriously?
strange. Yeah, it's been weird. Today is the first day in a while that it did not rain at all. But yeah, it's very lush greenery out there that day. But I'll post that photo to my Instagram story if anybody wants
Yeah,
to
send it to
go
us. We'll
back
share
and
it
look at
too.
it. And yeah, I'll send it
I
to
want to
you
see it
guys.
up close. I want to
Yeah,
zoom into it.
yeah,
The layers are really neat looking at it. I mean, you had sky, you have the mountains in the background, you had some of the kind of like look like some dry grass and greenery. Then you had the green,
yeah,
vegetation, and then you had that plant there and the crosses, and then you had the foreground. Like, it tells
yeah,
almost a story. It's very cool.
yeah.
Someone asked if it was Ektar. Do you
It
remember
is.
what?
I was just about to
Yeah,
say that. That's a fantastic
that's
eye. I
cool.
did shoot that on Ektar.
Yeah, whoever that is, good job. And if underscore photo. And let's see, we probably have time for one more question. I was wondering, what is the best thing about photography for you? The thing that excites you the most. Also, what is the most challenging one? I think you've expressed the challenging bit. I think people, right? But yeah, what
Yeah.
is the thing that excites you the most?
Oh man. All of it. Um, like every part of it is very
Hmm.
exciting and just like gives me fuel to get through the week most of the time. I love everything from looking at old railroad maps and finding towns to visit. I love everything from like scouting the internet, finding places to go. I love building the map. I love building the route. I love driving there. I love the snacks that I eat while I'm driving there. I love
Heck
the
yeah.
playlist. I'm a big playlist person. So I do have like some of my favorite playlists saved to my Instagram stories, and they're in my
Hmm.
highlights because I always get asked for those. So I'm just dropping that now. Um, but I love all of it. I love like pulling up to a spot and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, like you saw a picture of it on the internet or something, or maybe you were like
Yeah.
looking at it from Google Street View and you're like, well, gonna flip a coin and hope that it's there, like
Hmm.
50-50 odds. And then you show up and it is there, or you find something else along the way that is amazing. Um, I think the only thing that I don't love is the drive home, but the drive home then
Okay.
means that I get to take it to the lab, take the film to the lab and get it processed and then get the scans back. So it's still, driving home still serves its purpose, even though I don't love it. But
Right.
I don't know. There's not one thing that I don't love about it. Even just thinking about being able to pick up my camera gives me energy and just makes me feel great. So yeah, I don't know. I love all of it.
Hmm.
I can't find one single thing to pinpoint. It's just the whole thing.
Yeah, I can definitely, I can identify with that too. You're very passionate about it. It's really interesting to hear that. Um, so you do all this alone too, right? Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time I do it by myself, and I love that too. I mean, sometimes it's kind of uncomfortable, to be
Hmm.
alone with yourself for a while, but it's also kind of freeing in a way,
Huh.
because you
I'm
can't
typically
escape
the,
yourself, So it's like you have to work through whatever it is.
yeah, yeah. I've avoided taking trips. I've avoided going places, whether it's via car or plane or whatever, because I didn't want to travel alone. telling you, I'm gonna be in touch with you later and be like, I tried it and it was amazing, and I, feel so great about it. So
Yes, I hope that you do. And
oh,
if
I'm
you
going
come
to.
to Texas, you better let me know. If there's going to be like a tour that you guys are doing, like please let me be part of it, at least for
Oh,
Texas.
heck yeah.
I was once called the queen of tiny Texas towns, and I don't
The
I don't
queen
call
of
myself
tiny
that.
Texas towns.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Um,
I'm gonna,
but
I'm
I'm
gonna write
like,
that
you
one
know
down.
what? I need to like live up to my moniker, I guess. Like I would love to help you guys find some places to visit. I mean, I'll even drive you there if you guys want. Like we can all
Really?
hop in my little SUV, cruise on down the road.
Be careful, because we might just drop something in our stories and be like, "Hey, who wants to be a part of our first road tour?"
I've got room for 3 to sit
Room for
comfortably in
3.
my car.
We can
So
rent a bus. You know what I mean? I will, if we show up, I'm gonna show up with a crown, and I'm actually we're gonna crown you queen of, what was it? I wrote it down. I literally showed it.
tiny Texas
Tiny
towns.
Texas town. That's amazing.
I would wear it proudly.
I'm gonna work on that. I'll be in touch about that.
Okay.
So it's already 10 o'clock, at least if you're Eastern. So that concludes our interview for today. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for
Yeah.
your energy. Thank you for sharing your passion with us, not just telling us, what you're passionate about, what you like, but you're sharing your actual passion. And you opened up a lot. It's been inspiring. It's been awesome.
Thanks. Yeah,
For
thanks for
anybody
giving me
who,
a platform to share this. I was really
it's our
nervous
pleasure.
about it because I've never done an Instagram live, but I
Mhm.
loved it. It was a great dialogue, and I had a ton of fun. So thank you.
I'm glad. That makes me feel awesome. I'm glad. It was definitely our pleasure. Whoever hasn't, you got to check her out. At Cat, what was it? Cat Swansea Photo.
Cat Swansea photo.
I don't know why I suddenly have an accent when I say your username, but yeah.
Cat Swansea, it's cool. If I like spend a couple days in my hometown, I definitely come back saying my name a little different, a little bit of that southern twang on
A little bit of mirroring in the accents. That's funny.
it. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, send us that photo, the one that you
Okay.
had up, and we'll get it shared in our stories. But again, thank you for everything. Hope you have a good night, and I will definitely be in touch.
Yeah, sounds great. Have a good night.
Too. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Bye.
Bye, y'all.